Hans Kramberg briefs the UN Security Council on Yemen's situation. Peace building in Yemen requires involving women in the negotiating process. Houthis abduct dissident leader over criticizing the group policies. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Injilda Aziz. The United Nations Special Envoy briefed the UN Security Council on the latest developments in Yemen amid his visit to Sana'a. He expressed his hope that there is a new path in the situation after the held fruitful talks with the PLC and positive dialogue with the Houthi militia. Granberg also said the current year can see prospering future for the Yemenis. He also called on the parties to respect the international humanitarian law. Al Omani mediation delegation left the capital Sana'a after conducting negotiations with the Houthis for a renewal of the truce. Sources reported that the delegation left along with the Houthi team of negotiators to Muscat to continue with the Saudi discussions on a new deal. This report has more details.
A delegation from the insurgent Houthi movement has left for Oman's capital, Muscat, to negotiate a new humanitarian truce with the Yemeni government, following the end of the previous ceasefire in October last year. On Twitter, the movement spokesman, Muhammad Abdussalam, wrote, in continuation of the efforts made by the brothers in the Sultanate of Oman, a delegation has left for Muscat after conducting serious and fruitful discussions on humanitarian arrangements that achieve stability for the Yemeni people. He stated that the purpose of these discussions will be to pave a way for a comprehensive and just peace and an end to the aggressions and the siege. The sides to the Yemeni war agreed on April 2nd to enforce a truce, which the Houthis and the international coalition accused each other of violating until October last year, when the final stretch of the truce ended without renewal. The battle in Yemen is between the Houthis, who are backed by Iran, and the internationally recognized government, which is now represented by the Presidential Leadership Council and supported by the international coalition. The Houthis govern the capital Sana'a as well as parts of the country's north and west. The UN envoy to Yemen, Hans Granberg, arrived today, Monday, in the Yemeni capital Sana'a to meet the leaders of the Houthi militia, in conjunction with his briefing to a meeting of the Security Council on Yemen. The UN envoy will discuss the possibility of renewing the truce and agreeing on several files, the most important of which is the economic side, and to find out what the results of the Omani delegation's visit to Sana'a a few days ago have reached. The visit comes on the eve of a new briefing by the UN mediator on Monday before the UN Security Council on the situation in Yemen.
Peace building in Yemen requires the participation of all social factions, especially women. Yemeni women have been taking the lead in many positions, and excluding them from the peace building process would affect any compromise. This report has more.
As Yemen's conflict enters its 9th year, there is renewed optimism that one of the world's worst humanitarian crises will be resolved. The UN truce, which took place in April 2 and ended on October 2, gave hope to Yemenis to reach a peace agreement. However, women and marginalized groups are still excluded from international peacemaking forums. Only 4% of the negotiators in the 2018 peace talks held in Sweden were women. Women's situation from this framework is a direct result of their exclusion from public life and political participation. Despite women being seen as victims from places around the world, they have always participated in organizations as human rights activists, and they are still very active in peace-building efforts, especially at the local level. The UN-backed Yemeni Women's Pact for Peace and Security initiative aims to strengthen women's leadership, increase participation and inclusion in negotiations, and serves as an advisory board to the UN Special Envoy's office. Despite significant obstacles, Yemeni women are clearly an essential part of local conflict resolution efforts. At the international level, this must be reflected in their active participation in peace talks. Peace for Yemeni women goes beyond the absence of fighting. which is the main goal of the ongoing negotiations, but instead it's a lack of oppression, violence, and fear, and the destruction of systems that support gender-based violence. Gender equality should be the foundation of any peace agreement, addressing barriers to women's full participation in public life. This begins with involving the entire society in formal peace talks with a focus on local community-based activists. Even if an agreement is reached, peace and security for Yemen's women will be a long way off.
As the Houthis' assault on social media influencers continues, the Houthis have abducted one dissident for speaking out against corruption. They recently accused 4 internet influencers of circulating fake information, raising public opposition to the militia, and damaging the reputations of commanders. This report has more.
In Yemen, the Houthis, who are supported by Iran, have abducted one of their own men. The arrest comes as part of the Houthi campaign to silence internet influencers for criticizing the movement's corruption that pushes the nation closer to a food catastrophe. According to accounts, Mohammed Salah al-Houthi was seized by the Houthis from his house in Sana'a, only days after he was caught on recordings condemning the militia's commanders for enriching themselves while neglecting hunger and poverty. According to Brigadier General Mohammed al-Kumaim, a Yemeni military analyst, the Houthis arrested Mohammed Salah over the weekend after besieging his mansion. The subsequent shooting killed the operations commander Abdul Hamid al-Houthi, Mohammed Salah's cousin. According to al-Kumaim, the Houthis only carried out the operation after securing a written pledge from members of the local tribes labeling Mohammed Salah an outlaw for his criticism. Mohammed Salah is a government employee who went viral after appearing in many videos to proclaim his departure from the movement and criticize its mismanagement and failing to ease the people's suffering. In a clip, he declared his departure from what he called a Nazi terrorist organization, stating that he is not proud to be in their company. He added that due to the militia's dictatorship, children are starving to death and people rush to eat food from garbage cans. The Houthis have escalated arrests of their opponents, including some social media influencers who have criticized the group for not paying public employees and failing to battle corruption. They recently accused 4 internet influencers of circulating false information and citing public outrage against the militia. The 4 YouTubers have been detained many times since mid-December. They have millions of social media followers and were previously known for their backing of the militia. According to al-Kumaim, the Houthis stepped up their attacks on influencers because they saw them as a threat to their efforts to gain the support of millions of Yemenis.
Presidential Leadership Council member Sultan al-Arada discussed with the UN ambassador of the European Union to Yemen the latest developments in Yemen. Al-Arada praised the European efforts towards the Yemeni to restore their state institutions from the Houthi control, stressing the need to translate those positive positions into more practical steps. He pointed out to the PLC's commitment to the comprehensive and just peace in accordance with the terms of reference for political solution. Chief of Staff General Saghir bin Aziz affirmed that the liberation of the capital Sana'a from the Houthi militia is the goal of all Yemenis and that it will not be waived. During the inauguration of the new training year in the 3rd Military Region, bin Aziz reiterated that the year 2023 is the year of victory over the terrorist group and that the armed forces are ready to eliminate the militia. The joint forces thwarted intensive Houthi movements targeting the security of the navigation in the Red Sea. According to the military media of the joint forces, the Houthi militia has resumed attempts to build tunnels among the farms in Al-Fazza and Al-Jabaliya areas located in the coastal strip of Al-Tuhita district. Government forces thwarted an infiltration attempt by the Houthi militia in Taiz. The media center of the Taiz axis said that violent confrontations took place with medium weapons in the west of the city. Massam announced the removal of more than 1,000 mines during the second week of January. The project indicated that among the removed mines were 14 anti-personnel mines, 115 anti-tank mines, and one explosive device. Thus, the number of mines cleared in the first half of January is more than 2,000, while the number of mines removed since the launch of the project reached more than 300,000 mines. Coming next in the news. Cataracts threaten thousands of families amid poor healthcare services.
تهامة فيها خير كبير جدا.
البيطري صمم عمان للتغذية الحيوانية بشكل عام.
نجي نعالج البقرة على طول، الحمد لله الآن لو في بقرة مريضة نعرف إيش فيه.
يهدف المشروع إلى تحسين سبل عيش مربيات الثروة الحيوانية.
قمنا بعملية تدريب المربيات. الهدف هو كيف ننتج حليب نظيف.
طبعا هناك حماس صراحة من المزارعين وجمعية كشوبع.
نسبة الزيادة في الإنتاج قد تكون 99%.
Welcome back. Displacement remains one of the consequences of war in Yemen. Poverty and hunger are threatening the IDPs, among other challenges. This report has more details.
It's the bitterness of displacement and homelessness, poverty and hunger that threaten the lives of thousands of children and women. The suffering of the displaced appears on this mother who fears that her children will die of starvation and cold in a Saymat camp for the displaced east of Ma'rib Governorate. A tragedy that sums up the magnitude of the catastrophe that the displaced people have reached out of deprivation and poverty after the organizations that bore the responsibility of securing food and shelter have failed them. They were unable to secure flour and basic food necessities for these families, so they fled from the hell of war to the hell of poverty, homelessness, and starvation in the middle of the desert without a savior.
We're suffering from the lack of basic needs. We don't have flour, food supplies, or blankets. We're living in this cold and we can't find anything to keep us warm. We are starving and my children have nothing to eat. The humanitarian organizations are not giving us anything. Since the day we got displaced and came here to this camp, we have received nothing at all.
Thousands of families are threatened by the specter of starvation in the camps of Al-Saymat, Al-Naqi'a, Wahshan, and Al-Rahma. While food aid is piling up in the warehouses of the organizations in Ma'rib, where those in charge of it refuse to give it to the needy without any arguments, paying no attention to the suffering of families in the displacement camps. This has impacted the lives of thousands of women and children, that the war made them dependent on humanitarian aid provided by international organizations.
The flour batch provided by the World Food Programme is stored in the warehouse. 3 batches came and we didn't receive any of it. They are not distributing it and we don't know the reason behind that. We call on the local authorities and the humanitarian organizations to look at the people and help us during the time of displacement. They keep storing the supplies till it spoils.
A state of extreme destitution and a catastrophic situation experienced by these families. Their kitchens are lacking everything that the family can provide for their children. Empty pots and empty stomachs waiting for someone to satisfy their hunger. Everyone in these camps is at risk of starving to death. These painful scenes reveal the truth and corruption of food aid distribution, and those in charge of it, including the administration of the displaced, which did not take any measures to meet the needs of these people, despite their repeated appeals.
Social network sites have seen bloggers posting dozens of pictures of women in Yemeni traditional clothes. The move came in a protest against the Houthi restriction on buying women's clothes in Sana'a. Thousands of families in Hajj governorate suffer from eye diseases like glaucoma and cataract. Such suffering gets aggravated amid poor healthcare services. This report has more on this.
Yemeni children, men and women, are at risk of blindness amid a suffocating siege and the absence of eye disease centers for 5 years. According to humanitarian and international organizations, more than 860 patients suffer from weakness and blindness. Abdu Tayyib suffers from an eye disease that led to his loss of vision in one eye and severe vision impairment in the other. He is one of the hundreds of patients who suffer from the pain of this disease. He also told Yemen Today that for more than 4 years now, he has been suffering and his life has become really difficult.
I have been suffering from eye disease for 4 years now. I cannot see with my left eye and I can barely see with my right eye.
Abdu used to work as a shepherd and said that he cannot afford basic necessities because he lost his source of income, adding that his parents help him out to get through life. The war-torn country, which suffers from economic crises, is witnessing a decline and lack of provision of medical services as a result of the destruction of medical care centers and the conversion of some of them into military camps, in addition to the immigration of medical personnel abroad. According to the statistics of the World Health Organization, about half of the health facilities are out of service, and the other half is operating at half of its capacity. The director of the health office in Hayran district in Hajjah attributed the spread of diseases for the low level of health services and to the siege imposed by the Houthi rebels on the districts under the control of the government for more than 5 years. He also said that the absence of centers specialized in eye diseases led to the spread of these cases.
The people in Hajjah are suffering from the suffocating siege of the Houthis. It is hard for them to receive any treatment due to the conflict in Yemen.
He indicated that the cases which were registered and did not receive treatment exceeded more than 860 sick cases, including about 700 cases of cataracts and nearly 20 cases of glaucoma. It noted that the low level of awareness about the disease, especially among the old people, in addition to the delay in diagnosis as well as the delay in performing surgical intervention, led to an increase in the number of cases.
The Houthi militia imposed code of professional conduct on civil servants. This sparked wide anger among the people, according to local observers, such as staple tightened restrictions on public services. This report has more.
Since the failure of international efforts to renew the ceasefire in Yemen, the Houthi militia has increased its influence and dominance over Yemen is under its control. There has been concern over a process of indoctrination in public sector employment through issuing a code of behavioral conduct. The majority of Yemen's public sector employees are under Houthi control, accounting for around 1 million public sector employees out of 1.2 million nationwide. This Houthi move since November aims at gradually spreading the militia influence over state agencies and all public sector positions and is seeking to get rid of public sector employees who are not associated with the movement. Now public servants are subject to the code, which is considered mandatory and part of employees' performance standards. All who refuse to sign are under threat of being fired or replaced. The employees' code is based on the beliefs and statements of the militia leadership, as well as on its lectures and lessons about the Holy Quran, rather than being based on the Quran itself. The hadith of the Prophet are completely excluded, and the Yemeni constitution and laws are considered only secondary reference materials. Signing or acknowledging the code is being imposed as a requirement to remain in public sector employment. Any violation of the code is considered treason, for which the employee must be punished. The militia, according to reports, is also using double standards policy in dealing with the employees. High-level employees and officials in public sector and Houthi-associated entities, as well as their associates, are receiving generous monthly salaries, under the rubric of incentives. In contrast, government employees who are not associated with the Houthis have not received their salaries for more than 7 years up to the moment.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Hans Gramberg briefed the UN Security Council on Yemen's situation. Peace building in Yemen requires involving women in the negotiating process. Houthis abduct dissident leader over criticizing the group policies. This is the end of the news. It was Injil Zazi. Thank you for watching.